the days before the NBA and before college competition peaked in March, total scores of basketball games rarely broke 30 points until one man from Stanford University captivated a nation. Started a basketball revolution. Madness, a new novel by Mike DeLucia, available now. My name is Mike DeLucia, as you said, and my roots go to Italy. We have family that is in Benevento. We have family in Naples. We have family in Milano. And family in Varese. I'm a school teacher. I teach English, high school English, literature, and I also write. So I teach full-time, and I write. So in order to do both, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of discipline. I get up every morning at 3:45 a.m., and I work in the morning before I go to work, and then while I'm at work, I work in my lunch hour. I work when I have time, free time. I have lists that I make up so that I'm always focused on what I'm doing. And then when I come home from work, I do the same thing. I work, and even days off, when I'm off from school or I'm off from on the weekends, I still get up at 3:45 in the morning and I still work. And it's a continual thing. If I want to do it, I have to keep doing it. It's a labor of love. I grew up in the Bronx, New York. I lived there for 31 years, and then I moved to the suburbs, which in Westchester County, and it's a suburb from New York, from the city, from Manhattan. A lot of baseball, yeah. In the Bronx, we played lots of different kinds of balls. We played a lot of street games. Played, games in the street. We played what's called wiffle ball, and we played football, and we played softball, and we played baseball, and we played even stickball. I don't know if you ever heard of stickball before. Stickball is, the bat is about the size of a little bit bigger than a broomstick, and you take the broomstick off, and the ball is smaller, and you throw it, and you hit the ball. It's a whole different kind of a thing, but. Yeah, all different kinds of street games. We grew up in the Bronx playing basketball too. Let me tell you about how the story came about. I mean, I played basketball as a kid in my backyard. We had a basketball hoop and we played, but I probably preferred baseball most. But I decided when I was younger, I was in my early 20s, I decided that I wanted to become like Sylvester Stallone, and I wanted to write my own movie. And I wanted to star in this movie. So I was thinking about, what kind of movie would be good for me to write. And we were having dinner, in America, if you're Italian, you have dinner on Sundays at 2:00. And we have pasta and we have, different, Italian food. And I, said to the family, I said, I want to write a movie, but I want to star in it. So I have to come up with something good. And my father, who knows so much about Italy, and he's so proud of being Italian. He reads so much literature about Italians, and he said, I have a perfect story for you. He said, there's a guy named Hank Luisetti. His name is Angelo Hank Luisetti, and he made basketball into the game it is today. And I said, really? I never heard of him before. And he said, nobody has heard of him before. So I was interested in this story. He said when he used to play the basketball games, believe it or not, the total scores were 30 points, 35 points, 25 points. It was defense-based. It wasn't offense. It was more defense. So I went down to Manhattan. We lived in the Bronx, and every day I went down to Manhattan for 2 weeks, and I looked up all the files, and I looked up microfilms, and I searched around for old newspapers because he lived in the 1930s. And I pieced together all the information about him, and I realized that Angelo Giuseppe Hank Luisetti, Hank was his nickname. He created the one-handed shot. And at a time when everybody else was shooting with two hands. He also was behind the back dribble. He would dribble the ball behind himself. And he was what's called ambidextrous, which means that he could use either hand. He could shoot the ball righty, he could shoot the ball lefty, and they say that he can move anywhere around the court and put the ball in the hoop with either hand, sometimes without even looking. He was 50 years ahead of his time. So what happened was his team was in California, and his team went to Stanford University. And Stanford University won the championship. They were the West Coast champs. And a promoter from New York decided to take the best team in the East, which was Long Island University, or LIU, and put them against the best team in the West and have them have a big battle at Madison Square Garden. And back then, basketball was not a big sport. There was no TV coverage. It was mostly a school sport because it was kind of boring. It wasn't that exciting. And they thought that this team from California was gonna get destroyed in New York. But Hank Luisetti absolutely destroyed them. They had no idea what he was doing. He was so advanced that he beat them so bad that the fans in New York were rooting for him. They never saw anything like it before. And if you look at the newspapers, they say that that is the day basketball as we know it was born. Because the New York newspapers, they reported all about this new way to play basketball. Everyone started to imitate the great Hank Luisetti. Scores started to rise. Basketball all of a sudden started to get very hot. It started to build a really big fan base. And all of a sudden, March Madness came about. And then right after that, the NBA came. And it's all because of Hank Luisetti and Michele. Very, very few people in America even know the story, which is why I want to get it out there. He's a great, great athlete who's responsible for basketball the way it is. And he is the son of Italian immigrants. They came to this country. They had one son, and he completely changed this American sport. Nobody knows the story. Now the book came out 2 weeks ago, so people are beginning to learn about Hank Luisetti. But I want this to be, like when I told you, I said I originally began to write it as a movie. I have a screenplay written for this. I want to see this in the movies. So one of the reasons why I would like to see this made into a movie, and I'm actually hoping that maybe I'm able to get an Italian producer who might be interested in this project to be interested in demonstrating how an Italian changed the sport of basketball in America into being the sport that it is. He is the first person to score 50 points in one game. No one else, he holds that record, and he holds many records. Because the reason why I'm thinking maybe in Italy this would work is because in America, they don't always demonstrate the Italians in a varied way. Ever since The Godfather came out, it seems like Italians always play the same kinds of parts. And then there's other times when they have Italians, like in the movie The Green Book that just won the Academy Awards. You know, he not a very educated person, and this is the way the Italians are portrayed often in the media in this country, as opposed to all of the great things that Italians have done and how we've contributed to society and to the world, going back to the Roman Empire and through the Renaissance, and even today with medicine and science and politics and any creative endeavor and art and sports and really everything in every way. So the Italians are portrayed in a very small way, and I don't think always a positive way in the American media. And I want to show a positive Italian American who went to Stanford University and who started a basketball revolution. And I'm hoping that an Italian producer out there is interested in this project and would love to make this movie. I would love to meet him or her. You know, is interested enough to, to contact me and we can talk about, maybe let's, try and get it made into a film. And, bring it to America in that way and bring it to the world, because really basketball is a global sport. My mother and my father are Italian. My grandmother and grandfather from both my mother and my father were born in Italy. So, we're very Italian. My father, when we were growing up, he always talked about Italians all the time. He educated us. He used to say, Michael, we taught the world. Italians taught the world with all of the great things that we do and all the things. And he is very, very proud of Napoleon. He says, he tells people all the time, he says, Napoleon was Italian. Everybody thinks he's French, but he's Italian. And he used to speak French with an Italian accent. His parents lived in Corsica, and it was sold to France, but he was Italian, and he's the greatest military genius of all time. When I grew up in an Italian and Irish neighborhood, but I would say there would probably be more Italians than Irish, but, we had, Italian bakeries and Italian restaurants and Italian pizzerias and Italian ices, and we had Little Italy on Arthur Avenue that we used to go there and have the breads and the prosciutto and the mozzarella and, all of the great food. I wrote another book, even before that, but it's just a book about how ticket prices in stadiums, I don't know how it is in Italy, but, the ticket prices are so high. When I was a kid, we used to go to the ball game and it was pretty cheap to go in. But nowadays you go and it's very expensive. It's almost like the teams want to, they only want the corporations to be there. And the atmosphere at the stadium is not what it used to be. Everybody is sold out. I mean, they're paying baseball players, $300 million. Somebody just got signed for $300 million for 10 years. That's $30 million a year for 10 years. Whether he does well or whether he does great, it doesn't make a difference. And that all gets passed on to the fans. So that was my first book, called Boycott the Yankees, a call to action by a lifelong Yankees fan, saying that we should protest so that they lower the prices, so that the average worker can go and take his family to a baseball game and not pay so much money. And then the next one is called Settling a Score. Settling a Score is about two brothers, and it's an Italian household. And it's just about two brothers who don't get along, and one is older than the other one. And by accident, they get put on the same baseball team when they're kids. And through the adventure of working through, all the trials and issues and so on and so forth, they learn about life, and they learn about each other, and they learn about respect. And so it's a nice story. It's a free download on Amazon. Actually, you can go to Amazon and just click on it, and it's free. It's free for anyone. My Italian is limited to ciao ciao. Ciao ciao. And in English, hello and goodbye and yeah. So, how's my Italian? Ciao ciao.
Started a basketball revolution. Madness, a new novel by Mike DeLucia, available now.